Well, all right. Welcome, everyone. This is something a little bit different. We've never done a commentary track before. People who are familiar with my channel will know that I'm a big Star Trek guy, particularly the original movies. Loved them like ever since I was a kid. In Mauler's case, well, you've never really watched anything Star Trek related in your life, and I've gradually like persuaded you to give it a little try. And this is like your first kind of real experience of the movies. So,
Yeah, the
well,
full history is literally I managed to just accidentally avoid Star Trek at every single turn, no matter what in media. And then I think I needed to watch an episode to get context for a clip I needed for a video. And so I've seen the TNG episode. Is it called Darmok?
it is
And
called
then,
Darmok, yeah.
I've always seen loads of clips from TNG. That seems to be the main thing I see clips from, and it looks kind of neat. I watch a lot of Red Letter Media, so they review a lot of the newer Star Trek stuff. And with context from older stuff, it's like, wow. This is the exact same thing as Star Wars. Sorry, folks, with your franchise. It's funny to say that, though, considering Andor and Picard Season 3, eh?
I know we're having a strange resurgence of kind of good stuff. It's
I think it's the
bizarre.
corpse had one heartbeat and then
Someone
flatlined.
poked it and like a bit of flatulence came out or something.
Yeah.
Well, in preparation for this, I guess you also watched Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which I
did.
kind of cautioned you against. Like as your first Star Trek movie experience, I thought that was a pretty dicey one. But well, I'm not going to derail this commentary too much by going off on a different track with that. But just generally, like, how did you find that as a movie going experience?
I think it was exactly what I kind of thought it might have been, which is a very steady and normal introduction to the sci-fi that is Star Trek. This was a very slow-burning, straightforward sci-fi story that was mainly about ideas, it seemed to me, rather than the characters. What is humanity's purpose at this point in time of the Star Trek world? And it's like to explore, to discover, and it's like, what is at the end of that? And what does it mean for us going forward? And what should we do when we know that information? The Voyager probe is like the twist sort of thing. It feels like it's taking off from the era from which it was made. And then it takes us forward into the sci-fi future and circles it all back around to give you what I think is a pretty strong foundation for Star Trek's point of view about science fiction, at least. At least that's the impression I got. I liked the characters. I just didn't think much was going on with them.
I think, yeah, I think you're very right on that. It's a frustrating one because like they've got some of the elements of like good character arcs, you know, with Kirk, you know, wanting to get control of the Enterprise back and feeling a bit out of the loop, and he's kind of getting older, and like it's, you know, he's in conflict with his first officer. All that stuff is quite good. It's just it doesn't quite get developed enough to make it compelling.
Yeah, and you know, you have a lot of long space-related shots. I get why. I
You
do.
yeah.
But, you know, I'm going to say what everyone probably ends up saying, which is, you know, you could have shaved those down a little bit and put in some more character stuff. Maybe. I don't know.
You definitely could have, yeah. I will say as well though, the special effects hold up pretty damn well even today.
A lot of interesting stuff in there, especially the that aperture that opens up the core, like the alien ship.
They dumped a lot of money into that film, and it shows. I think they did pretty good work on it. It's a fantastic visual spectacle, if nothing else. But with the follow up, which is kind of what we're here to talk about today, they really stripped it back and they said, right, it needs to be more human oriented. You know, it needs to be about things that we can identify with as people. You know, the lust for revenge, the angst about growing older, all that sort of stuff, family dramas, rather than these grandiose science fiction ideas. And I think they did that pretty well with Wrath of Khan.
You've not heard anything of what I think of Wrath of Khan, so this is a first for the people listening to this as well as you. I thought it was really good.
Well, there you go. That pleases me. I did have a moment of like I was gripping my desk quite tightly there.
Well, don't worry, I'll upset everybody with criticisms I have. We can go through when we get there. It struck me immediately, this film, the script and director, it must be different. It has to be. Everything's so different. Almost every line has significant purpose. In the first like 10 minutes, I was like, oh, I get it. I see what this film's about. Like, instead of it just being a line someone says to another person, it's a line that like represents probably what the whole movie's going to be about, what points they're making. As you just said, life and death is the huge deal with this film. They have so much to say about it all. I'm looking forward to getting into it. Because obviously I don't want to say too much because we'll save it for when we're watching it.
All right. 3, 2, 1, play.
Exciting, eh?
I am excited. This is quite an experience. Like I've seen this movie many times, but like I've never watched it with yourself. So
Well, why don't I dampen it for you by saying that my greatest experience of Star Trek, well before I even saw this, was the J.J. Abrams '09 one and the Into Darkness. My whole
God.
understanding of Khan is from Into Darkness.
that is so tragic. Like it's so interesting then to see like your experience of this. You know, like seeing Khan as he was meant to be viewed.
What's really interesting too is that he has a history, and I asked, I was watching this with Rags, and I said, like, is there an episode that relates to that? And apparently there is an episode in the original series that relates to the backstory of all of this.
The whole thing about Khan is that he's stronger and faster and more intelligent than a normal human being. Like he's genetically engineered to be superior in every way.
Right.
And when it comes to his final confrontation with Kirk just batters him over the head with a fucking pipe. Knocks him out. It's like, it's really simplistic.
No amount of evolution can save you from a pipe, okay?
Yeah. I love the premise of Khan as a villain. This man who could have done incredible things with his life. Brilliantly intelligent, like powerful, charismatic, but fell victim to, I guess, hubris and desire for conquest and power.
It felt to me like a part of the point they were making was like the human genetics pushed all to their extremes of strength and intelligence. As an unfortunate byproduct, it's pushed his ego to extremes as well.
Yeah.
And
so him and the people like him, they saw themselves as superior to the rest of humanity and they wanted to subjugate them. But then they started fighting amongst themselves. And that's what like ultimately caused him to lose. And he fled aboard the Botany Bay, which was like a cryogenic ship.
So this is maybe you can clarify for me. Are we supposed to know this is a test?
Yeah, we are. We're not supposed to know
so.
this is a test. It's funny, right? Because prior to this film's release, rumors had started to circulate that Spock was going to die in this movie. You'll notice that he is one of the people killed in the simulation.
Yeah.
And Kirk says to him, "Aren't you supposed to be dead?"
Aren't you dead?
Yeah.
It was just a response to that little fan rumor. They were trying to quell it there.
When I was watching this, I didn't even treat that at all with meta information. I just thought it was a great little bit of foreshadowing. Because, unfortunately, I knew going into this that Spock dies at the end. How could I not? It's referenced everywhere. Yeah. Especially with the third film being the search for... Well, I guess you could argue that wouldn't give it away, but it's... Yeah, it's just information that I know.
A great recurrent thing in this movie is the Kobayashi Maru test, because it's such a cool concept of this idea of like, you can't really win this scenario. It's just designed to teach commanders a little bit about themselves, perhaps cause them to reflect on what kind of leader they really are and help them to understand that, there's times when you might not succeed, you might not win.
It's almost like for the superiors to see what a captain does when they realize it's all over.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can obviously have so many different kinds of reactions. And I really love the payoff of what Kirk did in this test. I think that's really strong.
Yes, that was a great... It just says everything you need to know about Kirk's character.
And that's the thing. I think these films really stand well on their own. They don't need the show, but I imagine having the show, it'll help. Or, well, I guess I can't say for sure, but I'd like to think so.
It must have been.
So
they
this
don't
is
fuck
just...
around with this simulator here.
I was about to say, this is for theatrics then, because everyone here knows this is a simulation, right?
I mean, presumably, yeah, like maybe it's just going to get the adrenaline pumping, put you under pressure a little bit.
Presumably, yeah, and as much as this may sound a bit silly, it's like they're letting her know, in a sense, I am now unavailable. I'm not actually dead, but, you've lost me as part of your teammates now. If I was in the cinema seeing this for the first time it came out, I would have been like, what? Like, what is
Killed the entire crew.
I'm not familiar enough with William Shatner's acting because I haven't seen any of Star Trek, but I really like him in this film. I think he's awesome.
There's some moments, particularly towards the end, where it's just like fantastic performance from him. Apparently, Shatner has a tendency to overact. Obviously, we know about it, but like he would have him do like a dozen takes of the same line to eventually just get him to relax a little bit and just be more natural, and that's what you get here. I love DeForest Kelly. I just think he's such a good... It's like a crotchety old character.
Yes,
actor, it's just great.
I suppose to give a compliment and then a criticism, I really like Spock, Bones, Kirk. Like I think they're great together. Sulu and Uhura are kind of screwed over in this film. They're barely in it.
They don't get a lot to do. Yeah, that's kind of a running theme throughout most of the films. Like the rest of the bridge crew don't get an awful lot. Like Scotty gets some good stuff going on in this movie, but
he does. Yeah.
If you ever watch Star Trek 4, Sulu gets some pretty decent stuff there. This scene really cuts to the core of where Kirk's at as a character right now. It's his birthday, but he's somber, he's subdued.
Yeah, and it's cool that Bones is the kind of character that can just say it to him with not much concern for blowback or anything. He can just be honest. Yeah. He's a crotchety old man. I always feel sorry for them that they have to try and have a high-tech way of video communication, but that looks spacey and sci-fi, but they're still limited by their literal technology.
Yeah, it looks like a 1950s TV or something
Yeah.
rounded, you know. I just always love the props in the background of things like this. There's just lots of flashing lights and lots of little beams of things going around. It's like, doesn't mean anything, but it just looks fun.
I just like that it's fucking lit, that you can see things.
Yeah,
It's
that's
weird
nice.
that because I've seen plenty of modern Trek, and a lot of those space stations are just so dark.
It's trying to make it like moody and dramatic, but like it's funny. It's just proof with this. Like you don't need that. You just need good actors and good dialogue. You can get all the drama you need from that.
But yeah, the actor playing the captain here, I'll never remember his name, but I just know him from other stuff. He does pop out.
Well, he was in Terminator. He was the
He
police
was a
chief.
chief, yeah.
I'll always remember that great line where he's like, he tries to smarten himself up for the news reporters, and he's like, says to Lance Henriksen, "How do I look?" And he just goes, "Like shit, boss."
Yeah.
How do I look? Like shit, boss. Yo, mama.
I always remember just how sad it is that, he tries to shoot Arnie when he's not facing him, because obviously that's a great shot, you got him, and then Arnie just turns around and kills him. And then Lance Henriksen's like, "Oh, he's turned around. I got him." Shoots him. Then just turns around again and shoots him. Just like, yeah, that's what people would do, because nobody realizes it's a Terminator. Like,
You would never think like, right, I'm fighting an invincible robot from the future. You know?
No. I think Chekhov sells like, oh god, this is a serious disaster. If these are who I think they are. So my first criticism would probably be, of all the life forms left on this planet, it's one that if you harvest it correctly could give you mind control over other people. I was like, that is an incredibly
That's-
fucking useful one to have left.
That's pretty convenient. Yeah,
Because obviously it facilitates a large portion of the plot line.
it does. Yeah, I'll give it that.
Bay.
Botany Bay.
We've got to get out of here now. Damn.
Damn. Here he is, Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yep. Could you imagine? There's probably a version of this where they digitally like superimpose his face onto Ricardo Montalban. I love how Khan comes from the far off future of 1996.
Yeah.
God bless the kind of optimism they had back then of like what the future would be. You know, that we would have interplanetary travel and stuff. Oh god.
It's like, not only do we not have that, we don't even have Star Trek anymore, really.
Yeah. But we do have Twitter, Mauler, and that's the important thing.
Yay! That'll solve everything. Holy shit, this guy is sweating like crazy throughout this scene. But I don't blame him at all.
I would be as well, yeah. And now begins the ship porn moment.
Yes, it's so beautiful.
It's at least it's not as like gratuitous as the motion picture. they do just enough to establish like how the procedures of the ship.
When you watch this after you see the first film, this is hilariously short compared.
Yep.
And I just wonder if maybe that they got a lot of feedback on that first film. They were like, yeah, I understand.
Oh yeah, they knew where they went wrong. Like that movie took Gene Roddenberry out of the picture with future movies.
Damn. But hey, Wrath of Khan is considered the best one, right?
Yes, it pretty much is. Although I would argue that Undiscovered Country is a really fucking strong contender. Like,
And which one is that in terms of number?
that is number 6.
Jeez, how many are there for the OG guys?
6.
I hear 3 is good as well.
3 is good, yeah. I think it gets a bit of an unfair rap as being like a slightly like bland sequel, but I think it's got some fantastic tense scenes in it. And yeah, I think it would be again an interesting one to chew on. 4 is good as well. It's something a bit different. 5 is the weak one of the series. That was the blip.
Which is a way better record than the TNG films, right?
Yeah, they're pretty much all weak. First Contact is probably the best of them, but like even then, it's just kind of a dumb action movie rather than anything
Yeah.
like interesting.
I was quite fond of this scene too because, and I might be looking into things that aren't there, but they start inspecting. There's a couple of like sort of fun bits, but it starts, it's kind of like it could be a little bit dry. And then he just cuts it off. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not doing the rest of this. I'm fine." It's fine. Which really felt meta to me. I'll find out if this is a hot take. I really didn't like the outfits and uniforms in the first film, but I like them in this one a lot.
I like them, yeah. In the first one, it was very, very
70s
utopian.
thin cloth.
Yes.
Like,
There
it didn't
was
look.
no-
I couldn't believe it as uniforms. I thought it was silly.
For everything, there is a first time, Lieutenant. Don't you agree, Admiral? Would you like a tranquilizer?
You need
We're
bits like
making some
that.
veiled reference to like it's a woman driver or something. Like I genuinely don't know.
Oh, I thought it was just that he was so close to be able to drive the Enterprise himself. Will bring it out, right? But he's
I
gonna be
assume so.
watching.
Like he's not used to like taking the back seat.
Look at him.
Hooray!
Dude, that was one of my favorite parts of the first film was there was a shot like that for leaving space dock, and there was this astronaut just spinning,
Yeah. It's like no point to it. It's just like, fuck it.
He was just fucking around. That's great.
I love all these scenes though of just like it kind of
Yeah,
establishes all the procedures of leaving space dock, and that it's quite a momentous event. You know, it's exciting. We're venturing out into deep space.
There's so many elements that I've now absorbed through the first and second Star Trek movies. They're so distinct from Star Wars as like a sci-fi. I mean,
so far apart. Yeah.
the goals of both of these IPs are so different, and it's so interesting to compare. But I'd still say what makes both of them successful as they are is going to be the character work, more than likely. It's everything else is super important. It's just that without them characters, man.
Who gave the order?
The order comes from...
I love that pause there.
It's great. I don't mean to like overpraise, but I just think that he really nails someone who's mind controlled. I know it sounds retarded, but like he doesn't come across as normal at all.
He's just really spaced out.
You're bothered by your performance on the Kobayashi Maru.
I failed to resolve the situation.
There's no correct resolution. It's a test of character.
May I ask how you dealt with the test?
You may ask. That's a little joke.
Humor. It is a difficult concept.
Humor's a difficult concept indeed. The script has so much punch and heart in it.
Yep.
I fucking love them when I can listen to a line and be like, oh, they probably mean this and this and this.
Yeah. Oh, there's such like, especially between Kirk and Bones, like there's just such this natural chemistry and
yes, these two
byplay.
They feel like old friends. It's another. I was about to say this is another important conversation. I was like, well, most of them are in this film.
But yeah, there's not much that's superfluous here. I quite like it as well with this. It's like Spock immediately is just happy to hand over command to him. It's like, yeah,
absolutely.
You're better at this than I am. Like, you should do this.
Wow, I don't want to jump, but I really love the fact that they so casually show Spock decide his final decision in this movie in the middle of a scene. He's just like, that needs to be done. I'll do it. Do you prefer Picard or Kirk in their prime? Who's your favorite?
Kirk, 100%. The thing is, people judge Picard against Kirk like when Kirk was in his TV show days, when he was like 20 years younger than Picard and not as experienced and maybe a bit more gung-ho. But like this version of Kirk, I fucking adore. I think he's such a great hero.
I was going to say, after this film, I'm quite a lot more fond of him than ever was because I didn't know much about him at all.
If all you had to go on was the Chris Pine version of Kirk, I could see why you would just not give a shit about him.
I don't care about that character. He's so generic. It's like action man, runs around doing whatever.
I feel bad for Uhura in this one. She really doesn't get to do much.
I mean, I'd go as far as it is kind of a joke. All of her lines, it almost feels like all of them are shot this way too, where she just goes, the communications are not up, the communications are up now, the communications are down, the communications does she have a line that doesn't relate to communications in this?
I mean, she is the communications officer, so I guess
of course,
that's kind of all she's got.
you would hope that you'd get something to tell us about her.
It's great because, like, obviously you're seeing here, like, the tremendous potential to create planets. But then, so say you use this on a populated planet, what's it going to do to that? Well, it's going to annihilate everything on it.
Basically, remix. It's like, to remix, got to break it all down.
But it's like the scientists who designed it never would have really anticipated that. Like, they just see the boundless
good
potential
side of
it. Yeah, exactly. But it's just a great commentary on like how science can be horribly misused and turned into weapons.
According to myth, the Earth was created in 6 days. Watch out. Here comes Genesis. We'll do it for you in 6 minutes.
I do not dispute that in the wrong hands.
In the wrong hands? Would you mind telling me whose are the right hands?
And who are the right hands, Spock? It's good stuff. This is I don't know how this is so hard for people to write anymore. And I can't help but dig, right? Your passions will be your undoing. It's like, if we count undoing as death, you know, Spock's lack of passion gets him straight into a position that ends his life. So this is another thing I wasn't too fond of, right? The situation is, that's a friendly. They've called for our help. We're on the way. And thus, we don't have any of our systems active, really. They highlight this. They're like, it's kind of weird they're not talking to us. And that there's a regulation, as she's just said, if we can't establish communication, we should definitely, like, I'm pretty sure that ends with her saying, like, we should put shields up.
I guess
shields up. It costs you nothing. Put the bloody shields up. Like,
yeah.
The only reason I'm harping on this so much is that this decides the rest of the film, the fact that they don't have their shields up. And I couldn't help but feel really bad when that door starts closing. I was like, oh no, is it going to lock people in, like,
oh yeah,
dead areas? And then we find out this does a lot of damage to a lot of people.
This is what I love about this film. Like the TNG movies like miss this a lot, where it's like just CGI ships blasting away at each other for hours, but like every single hit does massive damage in this movie.
Well, it's insane to me, right? Like, it seemed to be what JJ took from Star Trek was that we need to have a lot of bombastic, insane armies worths of space battles. When it's like, look at the fucking most beloved one. There's like 3 very short battles. You got to make them matter. It's not about how big they are.
The commander of the Reliant is signaling. He wishes to discuss terms of our surrender.
I just love how everyone stops for a moment when she says that.
Yeah, because we just went from potentially rescuing someone to, wait, we're being captured?
You hand over to me all data and material regarding the project called Genesis.
Genesis, what's that?
Don't insult my intelligence.
That wasn't even convincing to me.
I
Like,
know.
Genesis, what's that?
What could you be talking about? I have no idea.
I do like these moments where everyone's like talk quiet in front of the big TV so it doesn't hear you.
I love that as well. Like when Kirk's like, I don't know, you'll keep your word. And he's like, I've given you no word to keep. You just have no choice but to obey me.
It's a good response, and I don't think I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
I like that as well from Sulu, the whole like, faces locked. Just so you know, big TV, don't look at me.
Meantime, let's find out how badly we've been hurt.
Pretty bad, as it turns out.
He stayed at his post.
I like that line from him. Like, even then, he's proud of him that he stayed at his post and did his job.
There's quite a bit of power to draw out of very limited screen time for those, both that character and Scotty. But yeah, another thing that struck me about this film, it's very simple in terms of understanding the plot.
Well,
You need to understand the locations of about a planet and then 3 ships.
That's all it is, yeah. It keeps it relatively contained, and, you know, you've got the Reliant, the Enterprise, the Genesis device, and that's essentially your big components of it.
Kirk Enterprise.
Kirk Enterprise. It was very funny, because when I was listening to this, I think they repeat by the book like 3 times or something, and I was like, sounds a bit clunky compared to what the rest of the dialogue is like. And that pays off wonderfully. This part of what makes this script very punchy is that Khan is subverting Kirk right now, but Kirk is subverting Khan subverting Kirk, which is hard to write.
This is what happens when you have intelligent characters butting heads governed by intelligent writers who actually put a bit of thought into it.
What we want to see.
Where are we going?
Where they went.
Suppose they went nowhere.
Then this will be your big chance to get away from it all.
It's great because McCoy fucking hates getting beamed anywhere, so he's always
Yeah.
like cagey about the transporters.
That's another thing, by the way, especially being someone who's only seen the first 2 films. Kirk feels absolutely foundational to Star Trek, and it's so weird how much disrespect he gets.
You know, if this movie was made today, like Khan would go down there and they'd have a punch up, and that would be the end of the movie.
The thing that's
It'd be
would
that
definitely
dumb.
be in a new movie is Khan would call reinforcements in somehow, and so would Kirk, and there'd be a huge army of ships fighting each other.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they had like astronaut suits on and they fight like in the middle of a big battle in space.
Buried alive.
What a line delivery.
Yeah. Buried alive.
Who is Khan?
Well, it's a long story. We appear to have plenty of time.
All right, smart ass. Oh yeah, the glasses, they go on and then they're off.
Oh, yeah.
What am I feeling? Old, worn out.
There's such a great payoff to this line at the finale of the movie as well. Bones asks him how he feels.
Can I cook or can't I?
Wow, misogyny.
The Kobayashi Maru, sir. Will you tell me what you did?
You are looking at the only Starfleet cadet who ever beat the no-win scenario.
I reprogrammed the simulation so it was possible to rescue the ship. Got a commendation for original thinking.
Then you never faced that situation. Faced death.
It highlights the very obvious weakness to his personality, though. Incredible ability to like think outside the box, but also like you've never acknowledged the fact that you might not win.
There's a lot happening here that could be, I think, easily misinterpreted. I could even see a Star Trek fan being like, of course he's faced death. How stupid. It's like, I think the point is he's never been in a scenario where he's just had to lose. That is summarized quite well later in the film in terms of really making sure people understand what the point of this is.
Yeah.
And hence why I love that we're in a drastically bad situation in this film. We do get out of it, but we don't strictly win. I remember Star Trek fans getting so pissed off with Into Darkness's flip
Oh, I hate Into Darkness.
not even just that they flipped it, but that he gets resurrected like immediately after.
If you really wanted the epitome of what modern filmmaking is, that's it right there.
Well, see, even I am now capable. Probably could make a really fun video out of how much J.J. Abrams misses the point of this film. And also, why would you remake this film? Stop, get away.
I know they say if you're going to steal from the best, but like, yeah, it's not a good idea with movies.
Khan. I'm laughing at the superior intellect.
Yeah, you dick. Don't you insult the superior intellect.
Yeah, I really like the colors around here, and they managed to turn it into simultaneously sort of sci-fi abstract, but also kind of scary. The fact that we have a shot of them both moving without passing directly through to each other, because that's something that doesn't get taken advantage of in a lot of sci-fi. Is ships. A lot of them are on a plane that's like 2D.
Aft torpedoes! Fire!
Well, it was close.
I was gonna say, it's like that fucking went nowhere near. This scene's great. Like, look at that lighting effect. It's just cool. I don't even know what they're flying into. It just looks creepy as fuck. I would not trust you to man the weapons of this starship right now.
Let him fucking sit in medbay. Like, read a book.
Half your brain's been eaten by a space worm. Yeah, again, like this movie wasn't done on a huge budget. Like, it was really scaled back from the motion picture because that movie wasn't a huge success. And so they really had to make the most of like what they had in terms of sets and props and stuff. But I think,
which is kind of crazy because I don't feel at all like the budget is lacking in this film.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel cheap. This whole sequence for me is just absolute perfection.
It is pretty damn good.
Like, tension, tragedy, action, like everything just comes together perfectly in this next 3 or 4 minutes.
I love that little expression from him. It feels like there's just even a 1% chance there that he was like, I don't want to die, but I will.
Yep. Doesn't say anything to anyone, doesn't say goodbyes or anything, just goes off and does it.
That's the thing. No time to lose, right?
Yeah.
You know, sufficient levels of damage in the Enterprise would mean this scenario is happening. Like, it's not like it's contrived or anything.
No.
It's perfectly reasonable.
You had the line from Scotty, it's like, I had to take the warp core offline. See, as much as McCoy like bitches at him and stuff, he's like genuinely concerned for his safety here. It's like, I can't let you go in there.
What is Mr. Scott's condition?
Well, I don't think that he...
Oh, I hadn't seen this before, but I knew he was going to do the fucking death grip thing. Oh yeah, and another choice they made, which I find interesting. I don't know what you think about it, but Khan dies believing he gets them.
Yes, it's an interesting one. There's a lot of... I've seen re-edited versions of this where he sees the Enterprise warping away, and then he gives you that final look of him falling behind the console. But I think I'm fine with it.
I think it's interesting both ways. I don't think you lose anything significant.
Yeah, I think it would have been so cheap if like he'd seen the Enterprise warping away and just gone like, no! Or if, you know, like as much as Kirk had done that Khan line, he just goes, Kirk! God. From their point of view, they're all about to die. But like nobody's like running around panicking or whatever. They're all just at their stations waiting. Again, it's like professionalism, stoicism.
Well, yeah, only a handful of people know what Spock is doing, and they're too busy trying to compel him to get out than telling Kirk.
Sir, the mains are back online.
Scotty.
Go, Sulu!
As if Sulu needs to be reminded. It's like, get the fuck out of here.
They're Passeth Khan, the greatest villain in Star Trek history.
Well, he can always come back, you know. Palpatine had it worse.
This whole sequence of him like running down to engineering is intercut with like the planet forming, like the end of one life and the creation of something new. I will say, like, Shatner's performance here, I can't fault it.
There's a little touch here that I really liked. That
is it smoothing
Spock
down his uniform?
Yeah.
That is such a Spock thing to do. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it's excellently acted.
I didn't even want to say anything during it. I was just like, I'm just going to enjoy this again. I've seen this film so many times, but still. And when he passes away, like, the only thing you get from Kirk is just that tortured no. And that's it. Like, there's no...
It's so quiet for the most part. Everyone knows what's happening, which is such a dramatic comparison with the JJ remake. It's so loud and insane.
Of all the souls I have encountered in my travels, his was the most human.
See, I've cited this scene as like just a great example of how writing used and performances used to be just so understated, and you can infer so much emotion just from that moment of Kirk, like his voice breaking. That tells you so much more than like any hysterical bit of screaming or crying or whatever.
Well, she let out a tear there. She's that's huge for Vulcan, isn't it?
That's a big deal, yeah. You know, it's interesting, right? The two of them don't get a huge amount of screen time together, you know, in terms of like working out their relationship and stuff. But this feels like quite an appropriate resolution for them.
It's short and sweet, this sort of plot line, so to speak.
I mean, it's like he's obviously seen his father be in command. He's seen his father have to make these tough decisions and lose people that he cares about. I think it's given him a lot of insight into his character.
How do you feel?
Young. I feel young.
Grant, again, a great little payoff to his earlier lines.
We did it. So I mean, the script is tight.
Yeah. The way this movie manages to balance, like, so many different ideas, so many subplots, so many arcs, and bring it all together in a really satisfying way. Gosh, I love it. I respect it as well. I respect the thought that went into it.
Yeah, Star Trek.
We did it. I will say as well, like the little scene there at the end on the Genesis planet with Spock's torpedo, that was actually added after principal photography, because this was genuinely meant to be Leonard Nimoy's last outing as Spock. Like, he fully intended to just kill him off, but he had such a positive experience working on this movie. His attitude was like, you know what, maybe I could come back.
Can maybe do another one.
Yeah. And I think he directed the next one as well as being in it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I always thought they left that in specifically just to leave the door open. Me and Rags were talking about that. Like, is it a matter of you don't want to freak the audience out too much as it's sort of like a bait of like, oh, maybe it's not over there.
I think back then it was like everything was to play for, because they didn't even know if they were going to get another movie after this.
Yeah.
Like, the motion picture had not been a big success, and they sunk a lot of money into that. With this, it was like, well, there's a reduced budget, but we still have no idea if it's going to be popular, if people are actually going to take to it. It could just be a flop. I don't know what else I can add about Wrath of Khan, except that I just very much enjoyed that movie.
I thought it was very good, and I am already building up my Star Trek library. How impressive. I imagine I'll have to tell people about this having happened, because I think people wanted to know what I think of Wrath of Khan for a long time, and like I said, I think it's really good. Star Trek seems like a really cool IP when you've only seen these first two films. Because like I said, I actually like the first film. It's not like, I don't think I'd watch it again. I could definitely see myself watching this again, though. There are a lot of good films that I wouldn't watch again.
Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying. It's not that kind of it's not that kind of film that invites repeat viewings. But it's good that you watched it anyway. Hope you've enjoyed this little commentary, and that's all that Mauler and I have got for today. So we're gonna go away now.
Bye.